All right, let's get right into it. The year is 1952. The dust of the Second World War has settled, but the ghosts? Well, they're everywhere. This is a story about two brothers, torn apart not just by an ocean, but by the impossible choices they made when their world fell apart. It's a story that really digs into guilt, into what it means to survive, and the questions that can haunt a person and an entire nation for a lifetime. And this quote, man, it's really the heart of the whole story. The idea here is that the past isn't some dusty photo album you pull off a shelf. Nope, it's a condition you live with every single day. It's not something you have, it's something you are. So let's meet our main character, Professor Adrian Volkhardt. He's 73 years old, a well-respected German philosopher who's built this quiet, very orderly life for himself over in America. For 15 years, he's worked hard to turn his own explosive past into just, history in a book. And then one day, this letter shows up. It's heavy, fancy paper, and it's an invitation to give a big speech at a conference back in Munich, the same city he ran from back in 1937. But this isn't just an invitation, right? It's basically a summons from a life he thought he'd escaped for good. So you gotta ask, why on earth would he even think about going back? Well, he's looking over the letter, scanning the names on the advisory board, and then he sees it. A name that just stops him cold. Professor Manfred Zimmer. Adrian, though, knows him by a different name, Manfred Volkhardt, his younger brother. The brother he was certain had died years ago. To really get why this is such a huge deal, we've got to rewind the clock. We have to go back to the 1930s, when Germany was spiraling into darkness, and these two brothers had to make choices that would change everything. Forever. Look at this. You can see right here how their lives just split into two completely different realities. The same year, 1937, Adrian, the careful academic, gets out and flees to America. And in that very same year, his brother Manfred, who was part of the resistance, gets arrested and sent to the Dachau concentration camp. He survived 8 years there. 8 years. And this really breaks down that core difference between them. You had Adrian, the intellectual. He told himself that smart people, scholars, should stay above the political fray. It was his justification for leaving. And then you had Manfred, the resistor. He believed that when you're facing pure evil, pretending to be detached is just a fancy word for being a coward. One chose a life of safety, the other chose to fight no matter the cost. And this line, it's from the last letter Manfred ever sent his brother, and it just lays the whole conflict bare. He's basically saying, look, I know what I'm doing seems foolish and dangerous, but sometimes that's the only wise choice you have. The only real choice is to either be complicit or to resist. Wow. Okay, so fast forward. Adrian actually goes. He gets on a plane and flies back to Munich. He finds a city full of rubble and ghosts, and he's getting ready to give this big keynote speech. He's got his notes all prepared, a very academic, very safe lecture. But then, everything changes. He's standing up there at the podium, he looks out at all the faces in the crowd, and he sees him in the third row. His brother, Manfred. And in that one instant, he just abandons his script. What he gives is not a lecture at all. It's a confession. He doesn't start with philosophy. He starts with failure. He puts himself and all the intellectuals like him on blast. He talks about how they use their big brains not to find truth, but to build these elegant, sophisticated excuses for doing nothing while the world burned. And here's where it gets just brutally honest. He lays it all out there. He wasn't naive. He knew exactly what was happening. He admits he didn't run because of some high-minded principle. He ran because he was scared, plain and simple. He valued his own comfort more than his own conscience. And this is the final, incredible turn in his speech. He looks out at the survivors, at his brother, and he says that theories and books mean nothing. The only thing he owes them now, the only thing that matters, is the simple, ugly truth of his own failure. He single-handedly turns this academic event into a moment of profound personal reckoning. So what happens after a bombshell like that? The speech ends in this stunned silence. A few people start to clap, led by Manfred himself. The next day, the two brothers meet. For the first time in 15 years, they go for a long, hard walk by the river. And this really brings us to the question at the heart of it all. After everything that's happened, One brother in a comfortable American home, the other in the hell of a concentration camp. What could they possibly say to each other? Is forgiveness even on the table? You might expect Manfred to either scream at him or to offer some kind of easy forgiveness, but he does neither. What he says is so much more complicated and so much more real. He says he can hold two opposite ideas in his head at the same time. He can absolutely hate Adrian for his easy life, while also understanding that staying in Germany probably wouldn't have helped anyone. Both things, he says, are true. So you see, their conversation isn't about trying to make things right. It isn't about finding some neat resolution. It's about something much harder. Just seeing each other, failures and all, without judgment or excuses. It's about finally witnessing each other's truth. And this right here is maybe the most profound insight in the whole story. Manfred suggests that some wounds are too deep to heal. Some debts can never be repaid. And maybe the most honest thing you can do is just live with that. Live with the messiness and the lack of a clean ending. Now, you'd think that painful meeting might be the end of the story, but it's not. It's actually a new beginning. Adrian and Manfred start writing to each other, a correspondence that goes on for years. They start rebuilding their relationship, not on happy memories, but on a shared struggle to make sense of the past. And in their letters, they're just wrestling with these enormous questions. Questions like this one. If you survive a catastrophe, is that enough? Or do you owe something more? Do you have a responsibility to the ones who didn't make it? To the future? And at the end of the day, what they build together isn't a story of heroism or perfect redemption. It's something maybe more valuable. They forge a legacy built on one thing, a brutal, unflinching commitment to being honest about their own failures. And it all comes down to this one final thought from Manfred, which is basically an epitaph for the both of them. He says they weren't brave when it counted, but they were honest enough to admit it later. And the story leaves us hanging on that last phrase, for whatever that's worth. And that's the question for all of us, isn't it? In the face of our own failures, what is that honesty truly worth?